Welcome to this edition of Inside the PCS Classroom. I'm Chastity Downing. During our recent district-wide training session, we were pleased to have as a guest speaker Bill Madigan. He is a recently retired Avid staff developer from California. We think what he had to say should be of considerable interest to classroom teachers throughout Pinellas County schools. With that in mind, here is the recent presentation at Oak Grove Middle School.
So this is my essential question. This is what I'm going to try to answer in this interaction with you guys. You're going to be part of it. What are and how can I create positive attachment-based developmental relationships? Okay, what I want you to do is, first of all, I want to say, try as best you can to authentically engage with this material. Otherwise, you'll be like I've been too many times when I've been forced to do an Avid thing. And I go, I didn't learn a damn thing. It's because I wasn't authentically involved, right? Nothing will happen here unless you are, okay? So, a question I want you to think of, when did you ever have a negative experience with a teacher or educational leader? And I want you to consider when you were in school. So, preschool all the way up to senior in college. And usually the first memory that comes up is a good one. Right? And I want you to just think about that negative experience, like what happened, that kind of thing, okay? You might come up with a multiple one, like when I'm going to have you guys talk in a minute when you hear the other person, oh, that happened to me too. The next question I want you to trouble over is, why did you do better with teachers you loved or felt connected to? Why? Don't just go, oh, it felt good. That's big, by the way. But what else? What else did they do, okay? So, when did you have a negative experience and when did you have a positive one and what was going on in there, okay? Okay, I want you to turn to a non-threatening partner and share those two things out. Start with negative and then go to the positive. Go ahead. One of the things I wanted to do is experience what I'm about to teach them. That way, they're more receptive to whatever the research is. Too many people start out, here's the research, I'm going to tell you, and the people are not in a place where it really kind of sinks in or they can make it their own. When you ask them their own personal experience, and that experience has some emotive elements to it, when they listen to the research that I show after they discuss their own lives, then they actually access and really take part in that research. And if you'd seen them, like you can see it on their faces, they're going, yeah. They're really, the engagement and the attachment they have to the research is much more amplified when they start out with their own personal experience related to it first. Well, that's actually amazing. I did not set this up before, and you guys are the quickest to respond. This is weird. Yeah, when you see that, try to just kind of bring it back. I know all of you didn't get to sell your stories, and does anybody want to share out what they heard or what was a bad situation? Could be themselves or, yeah.
My partner shared a story in which the teacher, of course, who is quite skilled with multiple degrees, made their evaluation of the students as simple as he possibly could, which was only 3 parts to a test 3 question, so it was an A, a C, or an F.
Wow.
And it became a very difficult way to be evaluated and assessed, and there was no room for meeting the students' needs and actually making it more appropriate for them versus making it an easy answer key for a teacher.
Right.
Sometimes what's easiest for the teacher for grading isn't really what your student needs.
I want you to keep in mind that you just use a construction called either or. It's either this or that. You're either you know math or you don't know math. You're able to or you're not. Kind of that way of thinking that's kind of black and white. All right. I want you to keep that in mind. Okay. It's a good story. What's another one? Yes.
I had a 5th grade teacher who I loved with the Christmas time when we had pageants, and so we were practicing singing, and she said, does anybody know of anybody else in the group who's not up here singing that probably should be? So I raised my hand and I said, my friend Cindy. So she said, Cindy, come up and join the group. After you sit down. Then when I got to 6th grade, I was playing kickball, and I kicked the ball, and I came around, and then my foot started hurting, and the bathroom for girls was by the 5th grade room. So, because we had 1st through 6th grade then in elementary. And so I finished in the bathroom, and my foot was really hurting, and so I was going back to the 6th grade classroom, and I was hopping, and she stuck her head out, and she said, "Beth, you walk on your foot, stop hopping." And I said, "But it really hurts." And she said, "You walk." So she made me walk on my broken foot.
So that was mean. The second one is mean. The first one is shame. I want you to be like conscious of shame. It's really hard as a teacher to not slip into it on occasion, but it's one of the most damaging things. And why your brain remembers it from all the way back in 5th grade is a really vivid thing, is that, no, you're not like the rest of them. It's a shame. It's a shaming, okay? And it's just something you really should have like forefront in your mind. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brené Brown, the one about daring greatly and all. She talks about shame as probably the biggest reason why people are messed up and don't accept themselves even, okay? Do you have, I'm going to ask you this as a follow-up question, do you have issues like when you're under stress on a test or something that you just don't remember stuff really well? Yeah, that's super common. And what you really know, you have a hard time because you're afraid to be wrong or something like that. And that amygdala can literally shut off this prefrontal cortex, just shut it off. That's why a lot of you, when you get really frustrated, you go, you're freezing because this is off. This is just turned off, okay? All right, thanks for those stories. Come back. All right, now what I want you to do is turn, and okay, it's going to seem silly and stupid, just please humor me. I want you to, as a family, as a little group, you're going to be a family. I want you to talk to each other about what you have in common based on what you also talked about. Come up with a family name. Please keep it clean. The last group, I don't know. So go ahead, adults even. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to give you 4 minutes to come up with a family name. There's a reason for this. I'll tell you later. Go. To open the teachers physiologically to learning is to have them have fun a little bit socially. Of all the motivators, there's several motivators for us to do anything. Novelty is one. We like to do stuff that's new, try new things. The other is social interaction. Those raise our level of engagement and motivation to do whatever the task is at hand. So the other thing is, literally when you get people to smile, you ask them to do a silly thing like create a family name, they smile, and there's neuropeptides that are released that actually open you to the experience of this present moment. So you get them to open up a little more, and then when you teach, it actually goes in because there's more openness. It's your mental state and emotional state that probably is the most damaging or positive in learning anything. And that's why with school being so boring, it literally does kind of restrict, and the amount of information you remember is really low. They've done research on valedictorians and salutatorians on the East Coast. They took 1,300 of those kids, the top grades in every class of several high schools on the East Coast. They gave them a 9th grade test that they had taken when they were in 9th grade, and the pass rates were around 16%. So these kids are not remembering things. What they did is they learned how to navigate school, but not necessarily learn. So too often school is kind of a pantomime. It's not real. It's when, and many people say this to me, so yeah, when I got a job, that's when I started learning, because it was real world, it was interactive, it was with people. And the best colleges in the world, the best high schools, like Colorado School of Mines, or in California, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, what they do is they have a motto of learn by doing. So they'll teach you some academic and research-based things and then say, okay, take that knowledge and go build something in a team. So the building and the teaming is integrated into the learning. So and this is what I call it, is when the pupil owns this information, that's when you have them socially engage. So they have to build something with the knowledge they have, and the interaction socially helps it kind of go in. That's why I try to build that in with this. Who actually has a name? What do you guys have?
Should I stay or should I go? All one word.
Should I stay or should I go? That's really good. The next slide connects to this really well. You guys, you know you're doing that inside your brain. You can't help it. You're like, I'm a speaker, and you're going, is he worth it? I don't know. Kind of. It's happening automatically. Another name. Yes.
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds. Just Thunderbirds. Just want to say. Pitas?
Yeah.
Like with an eye.
Like with an eye.
Why?
Because I called her a PETA.
Okay, that's where it started, huh? Okay. Another.
It's an acronym.
An acronym, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so while I did this, I was looking to see how many people were smiling, and just about everybody was smiling at some point in this. Neuropeptides are released in your brain to actually open you to an experience more, so you'll remember it better. So I just manipulated you, okay? But in a good way, okay? That's why this sort of thing, a lot of times staff developers do it. They're not sure why they do it. They have somebody told them to do it that way. That's the reason behind it. And the more you do that, actually the better learning occurs in your class. It seems like a waste of time. As a teacher in California, he outscores everybody on the AP economics, which is like really hard. And he outscores every year. No one has beat him in his whole career, and he spends the first 3 months doing no curriculum. It's all team building and getting to know each other and figuring out who is good at what. And then they use that information, he tracks it, and they learn like exponentially faster afterwards, okay? You might want to just take some notes, because you will get a chance to see this again, I guess, the video. And you can actually ask me questions, like I said, any questions you have at the end. But if there's something that stands out to you that really, maybe it'll help you ask me a question. So in the center of our brain, this is connected to the amygdala and the eyes. We basically are assessing someone the minute we meet them. And we get an overall no or yes. I'm leaning in, or I'm going to back away from this person. It especially happens with a singular authority figure, like a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a parent, okay? And it's accentuated, like the volume gets turned up if the viewer, the kid, has gone through a lot of trauma, because his amygdalas are larger and they're more reactive, okay? So this happens all the time, moment to moment. And something you need to know, teenagers have what's called a very polar, it's because of the hormones in their body. They have a polar understanding of your opinion of them. They think you love them or you hate them. There's not a lot of in between. And the research on that is, if you do like, and I've had kids, oh, you hate me, Mr. Man. I go, why? I said, well, you made that face. It only takes one time with a kid who's insecure or gone through something, and apparently it takes 4 attempts to reconnect, to kind of erase that. So it's a hard job. I know. Okay, so this is really at the core of us as we meet as people. I'm going to talk to you about mirroring, which is basically giving someone a sense of self-worth. It only comes from another person. Self-worth does not come generated from within. It's only from one person or another couple people, and it can be a short period of time, but the only place that you get a sense that you're a worthwhile being is from others, not from inside, okay? So if children don't feel cared for by others, they won't care enough about themselves to struggle and learn. It's called mirroring, and Louis Cozolino out of USC, Pepperdine calls it the social synapse. Okay, these are great, perfect examples of mirroring in words. Go ahead and read those. Marva Collins started a school for kids in inner city Chicago that struggled with school. And a lot of her kids ended up excelling dramatically. And I'm about to show you a picture of her, and I want you to just be ready to gut feel it. I want you to look at this picture and go, what does this face say? Okay? What do you see?
She's determined.
Determined? Strength? experience, intense. What's that? Passionate. Tough love. Her kids all say she loves them. She tells them she loves them constantly. But a lot of people misinterpret my presentation as like, oh, it's touchy-feely, sweet, sweet. Some people can do it that way. And this also, another end of the spectrum of being human, you can do it this way. It's about investment and believing in someone, even when they're not bringing you what you want, okay? You're looking at this kid going, I want to light you on fire. I think you can do it, though. All right, it's the most important slide. You could sleep after this slide. Don't, but just, this is it. These are slices of prefrontal cortex of 3 individuals. These 2 on the ends are identical twins with the same genes. So the idea, you were probably taught genes express, and that's who you are, and your twin, the same thing. No, depends on the environment. This child was sent to foster care where there was a lot of food insecurity. The dad would rage at least 3 times a day, and the mother was completely withdrawn. So this kid was on alert all the time for patterns of, when is my dad going to scream? Can I protect my mom? Can I hide? And so all the energy and blood is going to the center part of the brain, the reptilian brain, the primitive brain. And so no blood is going up here to adulthood. This is adulthood right here, okay? Nothing going there. So when this child is in your class and they drop a pencil and you go, hey, Bobby, pick that up. You, Mr. Madigan, this place, and punch John and run out of the classroom. This kid, the brother, drops the pencil. I'm so sorry, Mr. Madigan. This kid can navigate really complicated reality much better than this kid. Right? They're identical. And the issue is the environment they're in either helps express those genes that are in the brain or not express them. Okay? So the environment matters with this thing. They look the same physically, but they've even found that people who are treated poorly are usually about 20% shorter and have higher incidence of disease. They may have some similarities because your body's under stress all the time. Okay? When a child is in a threatening environment, their brain doesn't grow properly. Their genes could be the same as Einstein, but unless they are treated well, they have food, they are not threatened, and unless they're challenged, like their parents limit and challenge them, they will not grow a fully adult brain until that environment, they actually fall into an environment like that. Now I want you to trouble over some stuff again. I want you to think if there was a person that inspired you the most in your life. It could be a family member, first grade teacher, somebody in college. Who was it? And I want you to tease out, when you talk this over with your partner, what are the qualities they have? What are the adjectives that describe how they are to be that inspiration to you, okay? In this moment, by the way, this is when you're really going to learn something. It's not me telling you, it's you learning it in your own and owning it. So really trouble over a person that really inspired you. They don't have to be perfect. That they really inspired you somehow to hang in there. And I want you to, again, tease out what it was that they did, how they acted that made you feel inspired, okay? Go ahead and share with a partner. Okay, I'm sure not everybody shared. How many people had some emotions come up in them a bit talking about it? Yeah. That's a super essential thing. I think, and I have a slide hopefully I get to, there's one neuroscientist about 8 years ago who said, you know what, emotions are more important than thinking. They actually guide thinking. And everybody went, no way. And then he proved it. He proved it. So a lot of people go, well, let's work on our cognition. We think it's like Spock. It's all up here. It's not. It's not how our brain actually solves problems, okay? So also, when the emotions come up, you can see how incredibly powerful the endurance of that effect of that person is, and why it carries you through, and they're gone, or they're not here, yeah? Okay, so what I just had you do is kind of experience inside your own selves what I'm about to show you. So it's a way of teaching that's kind of backwards, just as a side thing pedagogically. So in psychology, they have a book this big, like I can't even put my hand around it, that has a list of all the disorders that you can possibly suffer from, right? And it wasn't until about a few years ago that some psychologists said, wait a minute, why do we focus on all the problems and all the deficits? We don't have a definition of health. And I went, all we know is what's wrong. So what I'm about to show you is this Dutch psychologist who did research on mature and immature mind states, okay? I'm going to show you the mature one and see if you find on this list anything that you just heard someone talk about or in your own experience matches that person who is inspiring, okay? And the second to the last one is interesting. Humor, sublimation, that's the ability to rise above stuff and not let it affect them, and the suppression of their own emotions, right? The issue is you can lose control of all these great qualities when you're under great stress. Every single one of us, under great stress or threat, are not going to probably act this way. Yet, if you practice them more and more, like pilots do, when a pilot is in a plane, it's doing like divey, crazy stuff, and they just keep doing. I've heard recordings of pilots in really great danger going, okay, It's from training. They maintain this maturity. Teaching, I think, forces you to kind of do that, but I think you ought to be intentional about certain ones of these that you really want to work on and keep working on them, okay? And avoid the, oh, I didn't do it well today, so I'm garbage, right? I've been studying mindful meditation for about 6 years, and they have a concept of the 2 poison arrows. First poison arrow, something bad happens, like, ugh, I got upset with this kid. Second poison arrow you want to avoid is, I'm a piece of garbage teacher because of it. No, forgive yourself, forgive yourself, forgive yourself. You're in a classroom full of insanity. You need to get, like, put a crown on your head, okay? All right, so here's Arendt's opposite of this. Here's the immature mind, and I want you to think about that person who hurt you, or multiple people, and see if they're on this list. And I want to go back, I think it was over here, we talked about a teacher who said, you're either good or bad, right? It's not real. You're both. Sometimes you're better at something than another, right? Okay, so just the pedagogy of this is that you kind of owned this information before you saw it. You're thinking about what makes positive interaction and negative interaction and the level of maturity of people. And I said, okay, it's going to be up here. And so you're looking at it. If I presented this first, you'll, right? So just kind of remember that. It's kind of experience before you see the information. Every kid comes in your class with a varied level of readiness or awareness of skill level. They all come with different skill levels. The hardest thing about teaching is you have a kind of like a canned lesson plan. And if you teach that canned lesson plan, well, maybe these 5 kids get it and these 6 don't. You go, that's the way it is, I'm sorry. The new effort is not only to have that canned lesson plan, but learn how to adapt it so it challenges every kid. So if this kid isn't getting part of it, you give him some kind of tool or scaffold so he can access it. And one of the elements is having empathy. Is when you look at a kid who looks really depressed and you go, hey, what's going on? Let's go outside, I want to chat with you for a moment. What's going on? I'm not feeling too good. My mom yelled at me today or whatever. And I go, well, you know what? I want you to do well today. I want you to be proud of yourself. And I'm sorry you're going through this. They come back in the classroom. They actually want to learn from you because you took the time to regard them as a human being. And so even though they have some stress in their life, you've just kind of invited them back into learning by saying, you matter and I care about you and I want you to learn. So that ability to see, and that's what Mary Helen said, the people who had the empathy could tell. They adjust the lesson plan based on that kid's mood so that they can actually get them engaged. It's really complicated. It's really hard to do that as a new teacher. I get that. And you have to keep making that effort to figure out how to do that to learn it, because they don't really teach that in college or preparatory programs for teaching. While I was a VP, there was one day where all the other administrators were gone, and there was a fight exploded in the lunch area between 4 girls. And I had to grab 2 of them, and I had the custodians help me. They locked them in rooms separate from each other. And the one that I talked to first, I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, you know, understand that so-and-so was a girlfriend of my cousin, but she used to like my brother, and then my uncle, and my aunt, and my aunt." And I felt like she was throwing spaghetti all over me. It was making sense to her. Like, these are essential, like, connections. If you can see how this kind of grew and exploded. And I go, at the end, I go, "I really don't know what you're talking about. I can't make all these connections." I said, "All I want you to do, I want to make you feel safe here, and I want to protect you." She goes away later on to what I call the Earth Mother I had. She's lived in this Barrio Logan. She comes walking back and says, "What did you say to her?" And I said, I don't know what she was saying to me. And she says, "She really feels safe with you." And I go, "Wow." Well, what's interesting is by the end of that year, and hearing multiple of those stories, I started to be able to put spaghetti to connect it. I was able to do it. All those relational things that are super important in a Latino neighborhood, you know, my white brain was having a hard time. And at the end, I was turning a little brown. It was a good thing. I was starting to understand the kind of complexity, but I had to suffer through it. I had to listen through it. And that's the message I have for you today, because this is not learning how to do Cornell notes or whatever you guys do that's step by step that you can learn in about an hour and go practice with your kids and okay, it's done. Curriculum is fairly easy, but this relational piece about dealing with humanity and people and your own fears and their fears and how to get a lesson through that ocean, that's hard. And you only do it by engaging. And I recommend this year you pick out one kid that just drives you bat crazy, like crazy, and figure it out. Try every different plug possible. I'm going to try an Apple plug on you. Nope, that doesn't work. How about an Android? No. European plugs. Wait, this is a Russian plug. Just keep trying. And you will suffer. I'm sorry. It's temporary, it'll go away, and you'll be this much greater person, and you'll actually take more pleasure in what you're doing if you don't avoid it. I believe that relationships and connection with students is more important than the academic curriculum. The academic curriculum is important, but without a foundation and a connection to the kids, you can't do it as well. And I just point out that whole study on the East Coast. You can teach, and it looks good, but people aren't learning. I don't know how many people I've met who've been in 4 years of Spanish and don't speak Spanish. It's because, in a sense, it's not taught right. And it needs to be more social. There has to be more social interaction, the connections between students and the teacher. And those have to be built intentionally, because too often it's just, okay, go sit down, I'm gonna bird out this stuff, I'm gonna throw it out there, and you either get it or not. No, you have to make sure they get it. It's kind of like you're a sheepdog. You're kind of running around making sure everybody gets it. And learning a sheepdog skills takes time, effort, and it's very difficult, but you should be intentional about doing it.